Cool, let's put the microphone on. Hi, welcome back to Spirit Lounge. Hope you guys are doing well. We're on to the penultimate chapter of the Brhad-Aranyaka Upanisad. There's one more chapter after this, then we move on to the next Upanishad, which is the Chandogya Upanisad. So this chapter takes very much the same vein as the previous one. The kind of narrative continues as you would expect with this one, because it's been the same throughout all of the other 4 chapters. So this is chapter 5, and I'll bring it onto the screen there. And we'll continue on to this. So this is the Brhad-Aranyaka Upanishad, chapter 5. There is one more, chapter 6. And then we move on to another Upanishad, hopefully that gives a kind of different narrative, hopefully, and a different style of narrative, which we'll find a little bit more appealing, because this one's been a little bit tiresome with the way it's been continually using the same narrative over and over again in different settings. And it doesn't really change in this chapter, I'm afraid. So let's get straight back in here. We'll quickly pass this again, the Upanishads. We've talked about this many times. An old text ranging back to 700 BC. It's like the 5th of the 4 main Vedas, which are the Rig, Sama, Yajur, and Atharva Veda. This is the Upanisads is the more esoteric, spiritual, practicing Upanisads out of all of the philosophical writings. Okay, the Brhad-Aranyaka is meant to be one of the most recognized, I suppose. It has a series of kandas, and they are dealing with what you might call the sravana, which is the hearing. That is the part where you start to first receive connection with your divine self, and therefore to the divine through yourself. Logical reflection is when you start internally digesting and resonating, feeling, and then consciously understanding what's coming to you. And then contemplative meditation, the upapatti, is the more, I would say, transcendental understanding within as you move forward into your spiritual journey towards what is called the final ascent, which is moksha, the release from rebirth, in other words. Okay, so let's get into this. The first Brahmana, so I've shortened these quite a bit because some of them were very, very, very short. So there was only like 2 or 3 lines we took out of each one. So it's not as long, but it may take as long to read. The first Brahmana, okay, the Brahmana, the inexhaustible. It says, that is full, which is perceived. Perceived is perceiving the Godhead. Perceiving is the absolute. You perceive the absolute, which is called the full, the fullness. If you remember, the fullness from the Gnostic text talked the same thing. This is fill, which is concluded, that which you then, the manifested personal God that you have is the fill. So this is the fill here. I'm going to put full there, so I apologize for that. For fullness precedes. Om is Brahman. So Om is the sound of the universe. It's Om that people pronounce sometimes meditative state. It's also the symbol around that I wear around my neck. It's a personal symbol. That really means something to me. Om is Brahman, who is the ether. So it's the etheric, the unseen, the absolute, the all, the Brahmanic consciousness, the absolute Brahman. And so this is another sage, which is Kuratvatayani, used to say, the Veda, which the knowers of Brahman know, what is to be known. So in other words, once you understand the Vedas, you understand what there is to be known. And of course, the full is absolute, and the fill is the manifested world that you conclude in the experience with your own personal God. Okay, the second Brahmana, which is they're called the 3 principal virtues. Okay, so threefold offspring of the Prajapati. Prajapati is the creative force, which are the 3 are the gods, the demigods, deities, archetypes, and so forth. The men and demons. Remember, demons are really the opposite side of grace. Action, word, thought, and intention. Negative, opposite, dark is called demon. Lived with their father Prajapati as students of sacred knowledge. Prajapati is the creative force, the creative god, deity of sacred knowledge. Completed their studentship. The god said, have you understood? They said, we have understood. The god said, to be God said to be naturally unruly, are said to be naturally unruly, and so are asked to practice self-control. So these are the demigods, deities, archetypes that we create are in this way said. So Brahma being the creative force it has these three different forms, and the gods are to be unions, and they're told to practice self-control. Then the men said to him, please instruct us. And they were asked by Prajapati, have you understood? They said, we have understood. And they were instructed to give, because they're seen to be selfish, accumulating, and greedy. And then the demons were asked to be instructed, and they were asked if they understood, and they said they did. And they were advised that they have to be what is called dayadhavam, which is be compassionate, because demons are cruel and given to inflicting injury to others. So it is said. So this really means it's what is demonic. Let's finish this, and it does actually say here. It is suggested there are no gods or demons other than men. If they are lacking in self-control while endowed with other good qualities, they are gods. If they are particularly greedy, if they are cruel, they are demons. So this is really suggesting that we are either demons or gods. We can behave in the state of grace, or we can behave in the state of Luciferian or demonic or satanic persuasions, in tendencies, karma. We build that. So we can go either way. So these things are within us, and we can direct ourselves with each other. We can either be cruel, we can be unruly, and we can not practice self-control, or we can be greedy and practice duality as men, or humanity, if you like, which is both. Gautama the Buddha is described as the embodiment of compassion. So he's talked about detachment and compassion and karma, and says, "You overcome the revilers of forbearance, the malicious by blessings, the slanders by truth, the wicked by kindness." 3 injunctions require us to go about doing good, even though we find ourselves. Self-control is necessary. Daya, or compassion, which is the dayavam up here, is more than sympathy of intellectual and emotional feeling. It I solve in action, fellowship in suffering. So this is basically effectively talking about being compassionate, understanding, not being malicious, not having slanderance and wickedness, and doing good, but having self-control in action, words and thoughts, thereby not just looking at it intellectually, but approaching compassion in an emotion sense. Okay, let's continue. The third Brahmana as the heart. This is Prajapati, which is a creative force, and it's saying there's the same as this heart. It is Brahman. It is all. So remember, the Brahman is the consciousness, absolute consciousness, which is in the heart space. It is all. It has 3 syllables, which is called Hrdaya. His own people and others give to him who knows this. So again, it's really saying that those who understand that the Brahma absolute consciousness is also within the heart, or in the heart. These are syllables in which the vibration and frequency of that heart energy, and those who knows this, who give to others, know this, or they will practice from the heart space. The 4th Brahman as the true of the real. So he's basically given different definitions of what Brahma's absolute consciousness represents. It represents all things, remember. This indeed was that true. That is the absolute. Remember this and that, the perceived and the concluded. And that this is the perceived, and that being the concluded. That true, that wonderful being, the firstborn as the Brahman, conquers these worlds, and conquered likewise many that enemy be and become non-existent he for him. It's kind of very, very convoluted, but effectively is talking about connected to the true absolute Brahman, which is the nature of the real true I, the real true absolute, and the real true reality. In this way we conquer the duality or the material worlds, and also conquer the enemy that is actually not just within but also external. we share this with others so that they do not become what we call non-existent, which for me would mean non-existent mean that which is not connecting with the true spiritual self is for me a non-existent being. A material being is what we would call non-existent. An existent being for me is someone who connects with our true I. Okay, fifth pramana, the real explained. In the beginning, so this is talking about the real. Remember, the real is the cosmos, the universe, the material realm in which we experience existence. And that is what is referred to as the real. In the beginning, this universe was just water. So water is always referred to in a lot of Gnostic texts, is here and probably others. Remember, water is where life is nurtured from. It's the provider of life. It's the sustenance of life. It's the manifestor of life. So water is regarded as the womb of life, in other words. That water produced the true of the real. This would mean the manifested world from the real. Brahman is the true. And Brahman produced Prajapati, which is the creative force, and Prajapati produced the gods and also the demons and men, the creative force, in other words. These gods meditated on the real, which is the absolute. That consists of 3 syllables, Satyam, it's called. Water is the seed of the universe, and in the beginning it is in as undifferentiated form. Undifferentiated form means the true I. The true I has no differentiation, has no form. It is just the true I, therefore it's called undifferentiated. Differentiated means different than. We become differentiated when we enter material form or the body. And so Aristotle suggests that he got the notion perhaps from seeing that the nutriment of all things is moist, and that heat itself is generated by the moist and kept alive by it. By the moist he means water. So this is referring to Aristotle's stated similar things. And this is a note from the author. Okay, and from the content. Now what is the true that is the yonder sun? So he's talking about the absolute in the sun that shines, a cosmic body. The person who is there in that orb and the person who is here in the right eye. These two rest on each other. So the right eye perceived what is real, remember, and the left eye perceived what is so the right eye is differentiated, the left eye is undifferentiated. These two rest on each other. Though the vital breath this one on that, when one is about, so that again is talking about the absolute and the personal God, this and that. One is about to depart. He sees the orb as clear, so this is talking about the end of life. He sees the orb as clear. These rays no more come to him. Of the person in that orb is the head is one, arms, feet. His secret name is day. He who knows this destroys evil and leaves it behind. It's effectively talking about the sun here. Very convoluted, of course. Of this person who is the right eye, his secret is the divine eye. He who knows this destroys evil and leaves it behind. So in other words, it's saying that those who among us understand the divine I, i.e. connected to the true divine self, I understand what the true nature of the absolute, and therefore leaves duality, leaves matter, destroys evil, i.e. the duality of our personal nature behind. It's a very, very complicated way of saying these things, but remember, I always come back to when I have these thoughts that this was written 700 BC. And back then, this was the way that things were explained. So hence, we have to forgive the nature of the writing in some ways. When we look at it from a 21st century perspective, it's not always easy to, we have to remind ourselves of that. Sixth Brahmana, the person, i.e. the individual. This person who consists of mind is of the nature of light. Light is information. Information is what is the formation of all things that exist. It's just information, frequency and vibration, and matter perceived through the perception of our senses, and then through light. So light is source. Also is within the heart like a grain of rice. He is the ruler of all, the lord of all, and governs all. this whatever there is. Light is the spirit, of course, and around the heart space. Seventh Brahmana, Brahmana as lightning. Lightning is Brahman. Sorry about the spelling there, it's not correct. Called lightning because it scatters darkness. It's called lightness because it scatters darkness. So light is the infinite spirit. When it's risen to the surface, it scatters duality, scatters the darkness, i.e. helps us see ourselves and the true reality. He who knows it as such, that lightning is Brahman, scatters evils that are ranged against him, for lightning is indeed Brahman. Okay. Eighth Brahmana, speech symbolized as a cow. So this is again using an animal as a metaphor for describing aspects of the absolute, which again, remember, is everything. One should meditate on speech as a milch cow. Four udders, which are the sounds. The gods live on two of her udders. The sounds Svaha and Vasat, and you'll see, remember, if you're Hindu, you'll recognize Svaha and Vasat as being words that are pronounced in prayer and in hymn and in passages, in certain rituals. Men, so it's talking about sound of the gods. Men on the sound, Hanta, and the fathers on the sound, Svada. The vital breath is her bull, and the mind the calf. So it's talking about the ninth, this is the ninth Brahmana, so I haven't spaced that correctly there. The ninth Brahmana is the universal fire, which is the next one. This fire, which is here within a person, is the Visbanara, the universal fire by means of which the food that is eaten is cooked and digested. Thereof that one hears by covering the ears thus. Sound thereof that one hears by covering the ears thus. When one is about to depart from this life, one does not hear this sound. So for me, this is sound thereof one hears by covering the ears thus. So when you cover the ears, I would say that's the sound of universal fire, that being universal force, Agni, which is power, fire, which is another deity. That would be what it means to me. And of course, when you depart life, you don't hear the sound because you're actually entering the divine realm. Okay, ninth Brahmana, the universal fire, and I think I've just repeated that, so apologies, we'll skip that. 10th Brahmana, the course after death. So this is talking about what happens when we leave our bodysuit. A person departs from this world, he goes to the air. It opens out there for him like a chariot wheel. He goes upwards, he goes to the sun, reaches the moon. He goes to the world free from grief, free from snow. I must be sorrow. I think it was snow, actually. Then he dwells in eternal years. I think that's pretty self-explanatory there. But again, remember, you can see it's using cosmos, a planetary deities stiff in the sky, which was also regarded as gods and deities. And so you traversed into the heavens through the cosmos into the divine realm, because that was above. Okay, 11th Brahmana, the supreme austerities. And austerities are sternness, severities, things you become austere by pushing unnecessary things out of the life, have a more severe existence, if you like. The supreme austerities, so these are which a man laid up with illness suffers. So he who knows this wins the supreme world. Supreme austerity when they carry a dead person into the forest. Supreme austerity when they lay a dead person on the fire. A sternness of life, in other words, a severity of austerity, is probably regarded here as seemingly a negative thing, which it is, and it's really regarding it as supreme austerity when they carry a dead person into the forest. I think austerity could also mean here simplifying life to have it less complex in nature, so we have time to spend touching the divine within us. We can't do that if we have a complicated life around us and we have distraction, too many distractions around us. Okay, 12th Brahmana. This is Brahmana is food, some say. So the spiritual light is food. Food becomes putrid without life. So this would say life is Brahman. So without spiritual energy and force from the spiritual consciousness, the divine I, that spiritual force becomes putrid because it's not fed, it's not given light, it's not given power and force through our own will. Life drives up without food. Life becomes empty, and I would suggest that's true, when they become united and they attain their highest state. So Putrad said to his father, "What good indeed can I do to one who knows this, or what evil? Who attains the highest state merely by entering into unity with these two? This is Ram, the vital breath is Ram." So he's talked one person saying to the father, what can he do to a person who effectively they can't do evil to a person who has given life to themselves through Brahman, the absolute consciousness. This is Ram, which is the deity. The vital breath is Ram. The mutual dependence of life and matter. So he's talking about all things brought together as one. Life, matter, spiritual nature. So prana is life and anna is matter. So brought out and brought into synergy and synchronicity. 13th Brahmana, meditation on life breath. So the utka, which is a sentence, praise or treasure or praise or a passage of praise or a prayer, is the life breath. From him there rises up a son who knows the utka. Utka. He who knows this wins union with and abode in the same world as the utka. Utka is a hymn of praise. One should meditate on the life breath of utka. No man without life ever rises. Life is, remember, absolute consciousness, or the raising of Brahman. Utka is a praise or a prayer or a sentence that you meditate upon and repeat. We don't have that, but it's just, I think it would refer to anything that is a passage of prayer or praise. The yajus is sacrifice or worship, is the life breath, for in life breath are all beings united, life breath being divine spirit. The principle of union, no one without life has the strength to unite with another. The saman, or equalizing of tones, is the life breath. All beings here meet for securing his eminence. Wins unions with the abode in the same world as the saman, or it could be also shaman, but saman in this meets a sentence. This passage means actually tones through sacrifice, repeating words, and that, like Om, for example, to resonate and bring the divine to you, two sounds of vibrations and frequency of words in prayer and praise, which is the Uttha. The Kasatra, or Sutra, which is the power, the Agni, life power, is the rule. The life breath protects one from being hurt. He attains a rule that needs no protection. He who knows this wins unions with and abode in the same world as Sutra. So this is just basically talking about three aspects in which they describe the life breath, the spirit in which we need to ignite. So the power through, I would say, connection, power of the divine within, the power of the I raising up, and the power of the projected through sacrifice and worship, and the life breath through equalizing tones of Uttha, which is sentence or praise or treasure or prayer or passage or words that are used repeatedly to bring universal force together in a holistic practice. Okay, the 14th Brahmana, the sacred Gayatri prayer. So this is quite popular. My grandma used to listen to the Gayatri mantra, which I actually have as well. It's very nice to listen to. It's a powerful prayer. It's a powerful passage of praise. You can listen to them on YouTube actually. So it says, this is very, very sporadic, so I tried to pull some stuff out of here, but it's basically a passage, a series of a hymn that you can meditate on. The earth, the sky, and heaven make 8 syllables. These are sounds, remember. So when they call syllables, they're talking about sounds. Of 8 syllables is one foot, which is a line of the Gayatri. This 1 foot is that. the absolute or the personal God, this and that. He who knows the foot of Gayatri to be such winds as far as the three worlds extend. Gayatri or Savitri is a sacred verse of the Rig Veda, so it's a passage of verse which you could repeat and meditate upon. We meditate on the adorable glory of the radiant sun. May he inspire our intelligence. There is a meter called Gayatri. Meter is a passage. It's what's called as a sacred text, or a passage, if you like, called Gayatri, which is the praise, which has 3 feet of 8 syllables, sounds. The Gayatri verse is in this meter. So the Gayatri meter is considered as the most refined and sacred of the Vedic meters, and one that continues to be part of modern Hindu culture as part of yoga and hymns of meditation at sunrise. Exactly this is how it's used. The general scheme of the Gayatri is a stanza of 3-syllable lines. That's exactly what it is. I'll try to have a look online and you can hear the Gayatri mantra. Okay. Rika, which is the verses, and Yakumsi, which is sacrificial formula, Samani, which are the tants, make 8 syllables of the Gayatri mantra. He who knows that foot of the Gayatri to be such winds as far as this threefold knowledge extends. So because the 3 Vedas constitute the second foot of the Gayatri. Okay. And it goes on, talking about the Gayatri mantra. The prana, which is the in-breath, and the upana, which is the out-breath. So the in and out breath, which is also regarded as the breath, as the divine breath as well. So it's talking about, so when it also refers to, let's go back here, when it's referred to the life breath, it's all talking about the divine as well, but also the prana and the apana, which is the in and out breath through meditation, through meditating on the Gayatri, for example. And Vayana is the diffused breath when you let it out into the universe. So the syllables are pronounced in the meter, the lines of the Gayatri mantra or the meter, and that is what's pronounced out into the universe when you expel the words out through breath. Is 1 foot of the Gayatri. So the Gayatri is a guide of many-footed practice. And see that the Vedas are one of those, one of the feet. He who knows the Gayatri to be such winds as far as his breathing extends. In other words, you project. The visible foot is above the dark skies, is the sun. The 4th is the same as the Turiya. It is called the visible foot. He is called above dark skies. He who knows that foot of it to be such, he glows with prosperity and fame. The Gayatri rests on that 4th, above the dark skies, rests on truth. Truth is sight. That truth rests on strength, and the life breath is strength. Truth rests on life breath. The Gayatri protects the Gaya, and the Gayas are the life breaths, and it protects the life breaths. So it's effectively talking about pronouncing, using the Gayatri mantra in prayer, meditation, or praise, in and out breath, diffusing it into the universe, and part of the practice protects your divine spirit, helps it ignite, gives it power, it delivers truth through divine knowledge, and emits dark skies. Effectively, that's saying. Very convoluted way of saying it, but that's what it's saying for me. The 3-footed Gayatri, consisting of the gross and the subtle worlds, rests with its 3 feet on the sun. The 2nd foot is the Vedas. It's up 3 feet here. Some teach the pupil this Savitri, which is another Gayatri, the ray of light. Savitri is a ray of light. So the Gayatri is a ray of light. A Savitri verse as an amusba with a mitra, which is a saying, a verse, a passage. There is no such thing as too much, for he is identified with the universe. These 3 worlds, the gross, subtle, and the Vedic, if he receives, as in this threefold knowledge of the Vedas, that 4th, the visible foot above the dark skies, who glows yonder, is not attainable by anyone whatsoever. O Gayatri, you are 1-footed, 2-footed, 3-footed, 4-footed. You are footless, for you do not go about. The 4th, the visible foot above the dark skies, may he not attain this. May the enemy never attain his subject. So he's talking about the enemy not able to obtain this height through and obviously be a negative. On this point, Janaka, which is the king, said to Budila, which is another of his spiritual teachers, how is it that you who spoke of yourself as a knower of Gayatri have come to be an elephant and are carrying your majesty? So he's referring to him as an elephant and carrying his majesty. Obviously they did go around on elephants then. I did not know this. I did not know its mouth, said he. And it talks about the fire. So the fire is talking about here, in the Vedas is Agni or fire, which is Agni, which is a deity, which is light and heat within the heart space. Vayu is air, energy and action, and Soma is water, which is the creative force, which are deities. Okay, so he didn't understand what is in its mouth, i.e. these deities, is indeed its mouth, so all of these things. If they lay a large quantity of fuel on the fire, it burns it all. Even so, although one who knows this commits very much evil, burns it all and complete, becomes clean and pure. So he's basically talking about why then, being a fool like an elephant, dost thou carry the burden of sin, of accepting gifts, Madhva. So I mean, this is kind of very convoluted, but you can get the message of that. Okay, the 15th Brahmana, a prayer of Aditya to a dying person. Okay, I took a bit out of this. This is just a prayer of a person who's dying, is about to leave the earthly space. The face of truth is covered with a golden disc. This is talking about the sun. Eve, unveil it, O Pusan. Pusan is the solar deity, the sun, in other words. Remember the deified cosmic bodies above? Particularly the sun, because it was the giver of life. It illuminates light upon the earth. It was associated with many, many deities of the past, even Jesus actually. So it was associated to Jesus, but it doesn't mean Jesus doesn't exist. Many mythologies were associated with Jesus, and all the Krishna. Unveil it, O Pusan, solar deity, so that I, who love the truth, may see it. Being remains essentially concealed and hidden. It is a primary mystery, i.e. the I becomes hidden unless we unveil it to ourselves. Behold the truth when the real stands naked before us. In other words, when we're dying, the I reveals itself in its true nature, because that is all that transcends. Okay, Satya Dharmaya, who's another teacher here, a sage, seer, I guess, to me who have been worshipped truth, O have been practicing virtue as enjoined. S is the supreme to me, whose principle is truth. The connection of truth with liberation is traditional in Indian thought. That's a comment. So S is always the supreme absolute. O Pusan, the sole seer, O controller, O son, offspring of Brhad-Aranyaka. In other words, Brhad-Aranyaka, the creative force, created the sun. Brhad-Aranyaka is an expression and an archetype of the divine all, because everything comes from the divine intention and the cosmic forces that are emitted and that exist around us, that we can see and measure, that create things in the matter realm that we can measure materially. But Brhad-Aranyaka is again just an archetype, a deity that we've created as representing creative force. Spread forth your rays and gather up your radiant light, that I may behold you of loveliest form. Whosoever is that person yonder, that also am I. So he's talking about the radiance of light, which is the sun. They also identified themselves as that. And a note for the author says, the soul prays to see the face of God. Of course it does. Which is the essential communication of his divinity to the soul, without any other intervening medium, by a certain knowledge thereof in divinity. So we don't need any intervening medium or intervening deities or cosmic bodies. We are all looking to understand the divine through our own personal that and this. Remember, the perceived is the absolute, and this and that being that which we conclude, which is our personal God. Okay, may this life enter into the immortal breath, I then may, so let me just read this again. May this life enter into the immortal breath. I then may this body end in ashes. O intelligence, remember what has been done. Agni, which is a deity for fire, lead us along the auspicious path to prosperity, i.e., in other words, the path back to our divine home. O God, who knowest all our deeds, take away from us deceitful sin. We shall offer many prayers unto thee. This is a prayer for a dying person. So that brings us to the end of that chapter 5. It's pretty short. I'm glad I got it done in 35 minutes there. Again, there's one more chapter and we're done with this particular Upanishad, the Aranyaka Upanisad. We will get on to the Brhad-Aranyaka Upanisad, the Gandogya, I think it's called, or Chandogya Upanishad comes after the next chapter, which is chapter 6, which is the final one. Again, remember, practice whatever it is that one wishes to follow, absorb. Remember, it's just a passage. Jump onto many things if that's what resonates with you, but always it will end with yourself. The divine is found within yourself. Have that conversation with the silence, which is in, from within and to without, and practice it and become it rather than just do it periodically, because that doesn't really work, unfortunately. Okay, I just want to say thank you. Let's put the webcam back on here. Okay. I want to say thank you for listening again to this, and for those who are interested in the Upanisads, I hope you're finding them useful. For those who don't listen to them, will you just give me a message and see, is this useful to you? Because it's very broke, it's very complex. You can't write, I'm not going to write the entire Upanisads out for you guys. I'm taking a lot of it actually, but if you want to read it, then buy the book. But it is translated in this way, so you can understand what it is that is trying to say. You do get messages out of them. It's very complicated in nature, but this is how it is. But let's just hope it changes a little bit narrative in the Upanisads that are coming. So say thank you very much, everyone. God bless, and until next time, thank you.